Most people think home security means a deadbolt and a camera. That's security theater. It's designed for a world where the police respond in 10 minutes, and the power stays on and your neighbor isn't rationing food. We are not in that world anymore. Not in February of this year. 2 active wars, a destabilizing global order, a power grid that engineers have been warning about for a decade, supply chains that run on diesel and prayers. When the stack tips, and every pattern in modern history says it tips fast and without a clean warning, the average American home fails within hours, not days, hours. Hollow doors, short screws, ground floor glass, zero visibility past the front porch, no fallback position. Most people are sleeping inside a structure that was built to keep weather out, not threats. 5 upgrades change that. Each one graded. One costs less than a dinner out. One is harder than spending money. Let's go through all of them. Most people think home security means a camera by the front door and a deadbolt with a 5-star review on Amazon. Maybe a monitoring subscription. Maybe a sticker in the window that says protected by something with a logo. And in normal times, that's fine. That's more than enough. A package thief sees the camera and walks. A teenage opportunist tries the handle, finds resistance, and moves on. The system works exactly as designed, for exactly the threat it was designed for. We are not talking about that threat. Every documented societal stress event tells the same story. The LA riots, Hurricane Katrina, every grid failure, every civil breakdown, every moment when the infrastructure holding normal life together started to buckle. In each case, the communities that survived weren't the ones with the nicest alarm systems. But the alarm system stopped working in the first few hours. The communities that survived were the ones that had thought through what comes after the alarm fails. Most hadn't. Here's the specific problem with a standard American home. It was not built for stress scenarios. It was built for weather and aesthetics. The average residential front door uses a strike plate held by 3/4-inch screws driven into soft pine framing. One determined kick, documented average time under 10 seconds. And that door is open. Ground floor windows are single pane or, at best, double pane with no film, no reinforcement. Side doors and back doors, the ones you use every day without thinking, are almost universally the weakest points in the entire structure. Most homeowners couldn't tell you how many ground-level entry points their property has. The number is almost always higher than they think. This isn't about fear, it's about geometry. A house is a structure with entry points. The question is whether those entry points are hardened or whether they're just closed. 5 upgrades address this. We ranked them by impact and graded each one against a real methodology. Not a marketing claim, not a product review, but a framework built around the scenarios that actually matter. Some of these upgrades are cheap. Some require more commitment than money. All of them are available right now before the window closes. Before we hand you the list, you need to understand how we evaluated it. Because a list without methodology is just shopping. And shopping won't help you when it matters. Most people shopping for home security ask the wrong first question. When they ask, how much does it cost? That's a normal times question. It optimizes for budget, not for function. The right questions are different. Does it deter? Does it delay? Does it deny? Those 3 criteria, deterrence, delay, denial, are the framework we use to grade every upgrade on this list. Understanding them changes how you evaluate everything. Deterrence is the visible layer. It's the camera, the light, the sign, the signal to anyone approaching that this property has been considered. Deterrence works on opportunistic threats, the kind of person who is looking for the easiest target and will move on when they find resistance somewhere in the first 30 seconds. Against that threat tier, deterrence is effective. Against a determined, coordinated, or desperate threat, deterrence is theater. It announces you. It doesn't stop anything. Delay is where most home security completely fails. Delay is the physical resistance between a threat and your interior. The door frame that holds under force, the window that doesn't shatter on first impact, the secondary lock that adds 60 seconds to a forced entry. 60 seconds sounds small. It isn't. Research on forced entry events consistently shows that resistance beyond 30 to 45 seconds causes the majority of opportunistic threats to abandon the attempt entirely. Delay is denial for everything below the top threat tier. Denial is the absolute layer. Complete prevention of access through a specific vector. Against a coordinated, equipped threat with time and intent, true denial requires more than residential hardware. But denial for the scenarios most people will actually face, grid-down opportunism, civil unrest, neighborhood-level resource competition, is achievable with the right upgrades. Here's the critical number: 48 hours. Every documented civil breakdown shows the same escalation pattern. The first 48 hours after a triggering event are when the majority of residential security failures occur. After that, threat patterns shift and stabilize. But in that initial window, your home needs to function without grid power, without cell service, without police response, and without any infrastructure you currently take for granted. Run the audit right now. How long would it take someone to get through your front door, your back door, a ground floor window? If you don't have a specific answer, measured in seconds, but not in assumptions, you are not defended. You are just closed. All 5 upgrades will be graded against these 3 criteria. Some of the scores are going to surprise you. Nobody posts this on Instagram. There's no product photo that makes it look impressive. It doesn't have an app. It doesn't send you notifications. It's a steel reinforcement plate behind your door jamb and 3-inch screws replacing the 3/4-inch originals that came with your house. Upgrade 5 is door frame and hinge reinforcement, and it is the single most overlooked physical security improvement in residential construction. Here's why it matters. A standard residential door frame is built from pine or similar softwood. The strike plate, the metal piece your deadbolt actually locks into, is typically held in place by 2 screws, as each about 3/4 of an inch long, driven into that soft framing. Under a focused kick, the frame doesn't hold. The screws pull out, the frame splits, and the door opens. Documented forced entry data shows an average kick-in time for a standard residential door of under 10 seconds. That's not a worst-case scenario. That's the average. The fix is straightforward. A door jamb armor kit, available from multiple manufacturers, installed in an afternoon, replaces the standard strike plate and surrounding frame hardware with a steel channel that distributes force across a much larger area. 3-inch screws driven into the structural framing, not just the door surround, increase pull-out resistance by a factor that makes kick-in attacks non-viable for the vast majority of threat scenarios. Total materials cost under $150. A total installation time for anyone who has used a drill before, 2 to 3 hours per exterior door. Against the 3 criteria framework, deterrence score is near 0. This upgrade is invisible from the outside, which is actually an advantage. Delay score is high. Denial score is high for opportunistic and low to mid-level threats. The catch: door frame reinforcement only works on solid core doors. If your exterior door is hollow core, and a significant number of residential back and side doors are, the frame hardening becomes irrelevant. The door panel itself will fail before the reinforced frame does. Knock on every exterior door. A hollow sound means you have a different problem to solve before the reinforcement makes sense. Address the door first, then the frame. Or at grade A, B+. Here's a statistic that most people find uncomfortable. In documented break-in data from civil unrest events, not regular burglaries, but the kind of forced entries that happen when social order is under stress, the majority of access points are not the front door. They're secondary. Windows, side doors, back doors, sliding glass doors. The entries you use so often you've stopped thinking about them as vulnerabilities. Every one of them has a specific failure mode, and almost none of them have been addressed. Start with glass. A standard residential window can be breached with a rock in under 3 seconds. That's not a lockpicking problem. That's a physics problem. The solution is security window film. Specifically, 3M safety film or equivalent, rated at 4 mils minimum. 98,000 for ground floor windows with direct exterior access. Film doesn't make glass unbreakable. What it does is hold the glass together after impact. Instead of shattering inward and giving immediate access, the glass cracks but stays in the frame. A 3-second breach becomes a 30 to 45-second one. Against opportunistic threats, that interval is the entire game. The 30 to 45-second abandonment threshold, documented consistently across forced entry research, means that delay and denial effectively converge at that threat tier. Cost for full ground floor window filming in an average home, $200 to $400 in materials, more with professional installation. That is one of the highest return on investment upgrades on this list per dollar spent. Now walk your perimeter. Count every ground level entry point. Our front door, back door, side door, garage entry door, basement windows, sliding glass door if applicable. Most homeowners count 4 or 5. The actual number is typically 6 to 9. That gap, between what you believe you have and what actually exists, is where most residential security plans fall apart without anyone noticing. Each secondary entry has a specific solution. Sliding doors need a track block, plus a secondary pin lock through the frame. Basement windows need film combined with interior bars or polycarbonate inserts. Garage entry doors, which are almost universally hollow core, require the same solid core replacement and frame reinforcement as any primary entry. The catch: film and secondary locks delay. Against a determined, coordinated threat with sufficient time and tools, this layer buys time, not immunity. But that is precisely what it's designed to do. And for the threat tier responsible for the overwhelming majority of actual residential failures, buying time is the same as winning. Grade B+ most people's instinct when they think about upgrading home security is to add cameras. More cameras. Better cameras. A subscription that stores footage in the cloud. And in normal times, that instinct isn't wrong. But here is the fundamental problem with a camera-based perimeter system in a grid-down or civil unrest scenario. Every component depends on infrastructure that fails first. Power goes out. The cameras go dark. Cell service degrades. The cloud storage becomes inaccessible. The app on your phone stops updating. The system designed to tell you something is wrong goes quiet at the exact moment you need it most. Information is your first line of defense. Physical hardening is your second. The order matters because information lets you respond before a threat reaches your entry points. By the time your door frame is being tested, you've already lost the initiative. Perimeter awareness means you know someone is approaching your property before they're at your door. Non-electric perimeter awareness starts with motion-activated solar lights, not decorative ones, high-lumen units with a wide activation radius, positioned at every approach to the structure. A threat that triggers a 2,000 lumen light at 2 a.m. has been announced. Most will reconsider immediately. Those who don't have now given you a response window you wouldn't otherwise have. Battery-backed driveway alarms extend that awareness further out. A basic PIR sensor at the property perimeter gives you a 30 to 60-second advance notice window before anything reaches your structure. In a stress scenario, 30 seconds is operationally significant. Now look at your landscaping. Most of it was designed by someone who cared about privacy and curb appeal. Dense shrubs under windows, tall hedges along the property line. These are concealment assets, for threats, not for you. Low ground cover near entry points, clear sight lines from your interior to your perimeter. Those are security assets. Reconfiguring your landscaping costs approximately nothing if done during routine yard work. Your neighbors aren't just people who happen to live nearby. They're your greatest early warning asset, or they're a gap in your perimeter coverage. One trusted neighbor with sightlines to your property doubles your effective awareness at zero cost. There is no middle position on this. Either they're an asset you've cultivated, or they're a blind spot you've accepted. The catch: this layer requires ongoing maintenance and relationship building. It doesn't install in an afternoon, and it doesn't run itself. Grade: a minus. I know what some of you have been calculating since the first upgrade. Why not just get a professional smart security system? Monthly monitoring, cellular backup, motion sensors, glass break detectors, a loud siren. The brochure looks good. The sales rep is persuasive. Spend $60 a month and let someone else handle it. Here's what those companies don't include in the brochure. Every component of a professionally monitored smart system requires, at minimum, grid power or a battery that lasts 24 to 48 hours, active cellular connectivity, and a monitoring center that stays operational. In a standard grid-down event, backup batteries are depleted within a day. In a widespread civil unrest scenario, monitoring centers get overwhelmed, understaffed, or shut down entirely. In any communications infrastructure failure, the cellular backup stops working. These aren't hypotheticals. This is the documented failure pattern from Hurricane Katrina, from the 2003 Northeast blackout, from every regional infrastructure event on record. The system designed to save you goes silent, and if you've built nothing behind it, you have nothing. Smart security is engineered for normal times. This list is not for normal times. Upgrade 2, a reinforced interior safe room, not a bunker. A one interior room, ideally without exterior windows, with a solid core door on a reinforced frame, that functions as a position of last resort. 3 requirements: a door that holds under force, a communication method that doesn't depend on cell service, and 72 hours of water and basic supplies. The purpose is not to survive a siege indefinitely. The purpose is to buy response time in any high-stress scenario: forced entry, medical emergency, civil unrest, while you assess options and make contact. The catch: you cannot improvise a safe room under stress. The room must be selected, prepared, and stocked before any crisis begins. This is a decision made now, in calm conditions, or it isn't made at all. Grade: a minus. Every piece of data from every documented societal stress event tells the same story. Lone homeowners don't hold. They get isolated. They get watched. They get outlasted by the simple arithmetic of one person trying to maintain continuous awareness across multiple entry points, across multiple threat scenarios, for an extended period of time. It's not a question of will or equipment. It's a question of math. One person cannot cover 360 degrees indefinitely. Upgrade 1 is not a product. It's a network. 3 to 5 immediate neighbors. Pre-established relationships built before any crisis, not improvised during one. Agreed-upon communication that doesn't depend on cell service, a battery-powered radio on a shared frequency, or something as basic as a physical check-in schedule. Coordinated watch rotations that distribute nighttime awareness across multiple households instead of concentrating it in one. And a shared inventory of critical skills. Who has medical training? Who can fix mechanical problems? Who has food production knowledge? This sounds simple because the concept is simple. The difficulty isn't logistical. The difficulty is that it requires a social investment most people find harder than spending money. Buying $150 of doorframe hardware is easy. Walking next door and having a direct, unambiguous conversation about what your neighborhood does if the grid goes down for 2 weeks requires a kind of directness most people have systematically stopped practicing. Here's what the data on pre-crisis community networks consistently shows. Communities that had established trust structures before a stress event stabilized. Communities that didn't fragmented. And a fragmented neighborhood is not neutral territory. It's a threat environment with familiar faces. The catch: you cannot build this network after the crisis starts. The relationships that matter in a stress scenario are the ones that existed before it. The window is before. The window is now. Grade: A+. Let's be precise about what this list is and what it isn't. 5 upgrades and a February deadline. That's not a survival plan. That's a foundation. You can complete every item on this list and still be unprepared if you haven't thought through what comes after each upgrade holds. A reinforced door frame buys you time. What you do with that time is a separate question, and it requires a separate answer before the situation demands one. Here's the sequence. First, audit tonight. Walk your structure and count every ground-level entry point, the actual number, not the number you assume. Second, address your door frame this week. Under $150, one afternoon, the highest impact physical improvement available to any standard residential structure. Third, film your ground floor windows and harden every secondary entry before the month ends. Fourth, walk your perimeter, clear your sight lines, and fix the landscaping that's been working against you. Fifth, have one conversation with one neighbor before February closes. One conversation. That is the entire activation cost for the most valuable upgrade on this list. The broader calculation is straightforward. An undefended house is a statement. I believe the conditions that currently make this structure safe will continue without interruption. A hardened position is a different statement. I'm not building my family's safety on that assumption. You don't have to believe the worst is imminent to act like it's possible. You just have to be honest about the difference between a house built for weather and one prepared for what's actually developing outside. Those are two different structures. Right now, most people are living in the first one and assuming it's the second. 5 upgrades, 1 window, 1 decision.